Welcome to Black Fire Chronicles, where history's untold stories and deep conflicts come to life. If you're into powerful narratives, historical struggles, and the intense clashes between black and white communities, make sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Black Fire Chronicles, where the fire never dies.
The River of Ash. East St. Louis, 1917. East St. Louis, Illinois. In the summer of 1917 was a city teetering on the edge of a precipice. World War I raged in Europe, creating a desperate need for industrial labor. The Great Migration brought thousands of African Americans from the rural South to the industrial centers of the North, seeking economic opportunity and an escape from Jim Crow oppression. But this influx of black workers ignited fierce competition for jobs and housing, intensifying racial tensions in a city already rife with poverty, corruption, and simmering animosity. The stage was set for a devastating explosion of violence, a massacre that would scar the city forever. The East St. Louis racer riot of 1917 was not a spontaneous outburst, but rather a carefully orchestrated act of racial terror, fueled by economic anxieties, white supremacist ideology, and the deliberate manipulation of public opinion. It was a tragedy that exposed the fragility of racial progress and the enduring power of hatred, a moment of profound shame that continues to haunt the American conscience. This is the story of the River of Ash, a narrative that delves into the lives and dreams of East St. Louis's residents, explores the volatile social and economic forces at play, and recounts the horrific events of July 1917, a turning point in the history of race relations in America. Part 1, A City of Dreams, a crucible of discontent. To understand the events of 1917, it is essential to first grasp the complexities of East St. Louis, a city teeming with ambition, opportunity, and also with simmering resentment and inequality. Chapter 1, Boomtown Blues. East St. Louis, situated across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri, experienced explosive growth in the early 20th century, becoming a major industrial hub. Its stockyards, meatpacking plants, steel mills, and railroad terminals attracted workers from across the country, drawn by the promise of high wages and economic advancement. However, the boom was not shared equally. The city was plagued by poverty, crime, and corruption. Housing was scarce and overcrowded, particularly in the black neighborhoods. Working conditions in the factories were dangerous. East St. Louis, for many, was a city of shattered dreams. Chapter 2, The Great Migration and Shifting Demographics. The outbreak of World War I in Europe created a surge in demand for American-manufactured goods, fueling an economic boom in cities like East St. Louis. At the same time, the war cut off European immigration, creating a labor shortage. This coincided with the Great Migration, a mass movement of African Americans from the rural South to the industrial centers of the North, seeking to escape the Jim Crow laws and to find better economic opportunities. Thousands of black families poured into East St. Louis, transforming the city's demographics and intensifying competition for jobs and housing. Chapter 3, Racial Fault Lines, Competition and Resentment. The influx of black workers ignited existing racial tensions in East St. Louis. White workers, fearing for their jobs and their economic security, resented the new arrivals. They viewed black workers as strikebreakers and as a threat to their wages and working conditions. White labor unions often excluded black workers, further limiting their opportunities and fueling their resentment. The city's housing shortage exacerbated the problem, as black families were forced to compete with white families for limited and often substandard housing. Racial slurs, insults, and acts of intimidation became commonplace, creating a climate of fear and animosity. Part 2. Seeds of animosity, union disputes, and political manipulation. The economic anxieties and racial prejudices were exploited by political leaders and labor organizers who used fear and division to further their own agendas. Chapter 4. The Aluminum Ore Company Strike. In the spring of 1917, a major strike erupted at the Aluminum Ore Company, one of the largest employers in East St. Louis. White workers, demanding higher wages and better working conditions, walked off the job. The company, seeking to break the strike, recruited black workers to replace the striking white employees. This move inflamed racial tensions, as white workers saw black workers as strikebreakers. The strike became a flashpoint for racial violence, as white workers attacked black workers and their families. Chapter 5. The East St. Louis Central Trades and Labor Union. The East St. Louis Central Trades and Labor Union, a powerful organization representing white workers, played a key role in fanning the flames of racial hatred. The union leaders, motivated by economic self-interest and racial prejudice, used inflammatory rhetoric to demonize black workers and to incite violence against them. The union leaders organized mass meetings and protests where they spread lies and misinformation about black workers. They accused them of driving down wages, undermining labor standards, and threatening the jobs of white workers. The union played a significant role in creating the climate of hostility. Chapter 6. The Political Calculation. Political leaders in East St. Louis also exploited the racial tensions for their own gain. The city's mayor, a white Democrat, and other elected officials, facing growing opposition from the Republican Party, sought to consolidate their power by appealing to white voters. They used racist rhetoric and demonized black residents, trying to scare voters. They created a political climate that was perfect for violence. Part 3. The Inferno ignites. The massacre begins. The carefully cultivated animosity was about to erupt. A series of incidents triggered widespread violence, resulting in a massacre of innocent black residents. Chapter 7. The Drive-By Shooting. On July 1st, 1917, a car carrying white men drove through a black neighborhood in East St. Louis, firing shots into homes and businesses. The attack was intended to intimidate and terrorize black residents, sending a clear message that they were not welcome in the city. The drive-by shooting sparked outrage. Tensions increased as the violence threatened to boil. Chapter 8. The Meeting at the Labor Temple. Later that same day, a mass meeting was held at the Labor Temple, a union hall in East St. Louis. The meeting, organized by white labor leaders, was intended to discuss the Aluminum Ore Company's strike. However, the meeting quickly turned into a forum for racial hatred. Speakers ranted and screamed. They demonized black people. They called for the expulsion of all black workers. The meeting served as a call to arms, galvanizing support for violence. Chapter 9. The shooting of the detectives. Following the meeting at the Labor Temple, a group of white men, enraged and fueled by alcohol, decided to take action. They armed themselves and set out to attack black residents. The white men encountered two detectives who were looking for the gunman from the drive-by shooting earlier that day. The detectives were killed. The shooting of the detectives became the pretext for the massacre that would follow. Part 4. Days of Terror. The bloodshed in East St. Louis. The news of the shooting spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of violence that engulfed the city. For days, white mobs roamed the streets, targeting black residents and their property. Chapter 10. The hunt begins. White mobs, armed with guns, clubs, and knives, began to hunt down black residents. The marauders were free to do what they wanted. Black residents were dragged from their homes, shot in the streets, and lynched from trees. Black women were assaulted and children were terrorized. The violence was particularly brutal and senseless. Black residents, who were known to be successful or outspoken, were targeted specifically. Chapter 11. The flames rise. The rioters set fire to black homes and businesses, creating a scene of unimaginable horror. The flames consumed everything in their path, forcing black families to flee for their lives. The burning of black neighborhoods was a deliberate act of erasure, an attempt to wipe out the black community and to destroy any evidence of their existence. The city was transformed into a scene of inferno. Chapter 12. The river runs red. Many black residents, desperate to escape the violence, tried to flee across the Mississippi River into St. Louis, Missouri. However, the white mob pursued them, shooting at them as they attempted to cross the river. The river ran red with the blood of innocent victims. Their bodies were dumped in the water. The river became a symbol of the massacre, a testament to the brutality and the senselessness of the violence. Part 5. Echoes of Destruction. The aftermath of the massacre. The East St. Louis race riot left behind a city scarred by violence, hatred, and a profound sense of loss. The black community had been devastated. The lives were destroyed. Chapter 13. A city in shock. In the aftermath of the riot, East St. Louis was in a state of shock. The scale of the violence. They grappled to fully understand. The destruction was appalling. There were more dead. The streets were eerily quiet, as residents, both black and white, remained in their homes, fearing for their safety. Chapter 14. The official response: a denial of justice. The official response to the East St. Louis race riot was inadequate and often complicit in perpetuating the injustice. The police were slow to respond to violence. Their lack of help added to the damage. Local law enforcement officials, many of whom had participated in the violence or turned a blind eye to it, were placed in charge of investigating the riot. The investigations focused on prosecuting black residents for inciting violence. Few white rioters were brought to justice. The National Guard was deployed to restore order, but their presence did little to alleviate the fear and the tension that gripped the city. Chapter 15. A silent exodus. In the aftermath of the riot, thousands of black residents fled East St. Louis, seeking refuge in other cities and states. They had lost their families. They had lost their homes. The exodus transformed the demographics. The exodus also caused many businesses to fail. The city felt empty. The black residents carried the trauma. They knew it had changed everything. Part 6, Seeds of Remembrance. The fight for truth and accountability. Despite the efforts to erase the memory of the East St. Louis race riot, the story lived on in the hearts and minds of the survivors and their descendants. The memories would never leave them. Chapter 16. The Unspoken History. The stories were often told in hushed tones, filled with fear and sadness. The stories became a testament. They would not forget. Chapter 17. The Long Shadow. In the latter part of the 20th century, a new generation of historians has worked to bring the massacre to the forefront. They have uncovered the truth. They have honored those who died. They have also created a renewed effort to study the events. They vowed to study the history. Chapter 18. Justice for the Lost. Many leaders emerged. They sought justice. They were determined that something should change. The efforts are beginning to have an impact. There are more resources. The power of history was finally known. Part 7. The present day. Echoes in the modern world. The massacre serves as a cautionary tale. Those events must never be forgotten. Chapter 19. Modern day. The new century brought new challenges. More people could share their ideas. It was easier to discuss what happened. They worked to stop hate. Chapter 20. Looking forward. There was change. There were also improvements. It's a work in progress. Chapter 21. Change. The change is still here, and this is the future. There is hope, and we must embrace the lessons. And then we can keep moving forward. Epilogue. The river still flows. The river is still flowing. It can help heal the wounds. It is not over.
Thank you for watching until the end. I hope Black Fire Chronicles has given you a deeper and more powerful perspective on history. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. See you in the next video, where history's fire keeps burning. Black Fire Chronicles, where the fire never dies.